Psychology of Gen X parents, the latchkey kids who became stealth fighters. There's a quiet irony at the center of Gen X parenting. The same generation that was told, "Go outside and don't come back until the streetlights come on," is now being criticized for being too involved in their children's lives. To present, too protective. Too intense when it counts. But if you zoom out psychologically, that paradox makes perfect sense. Because to understand Gen X parents, you have to understand the environment that built them. If you were born roughly between 1965 and 1980, you grew up during a massive social shift in the United States. For the first time at scale, both parents were working outside the home, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. The percentage of mothers with children under 6 who were in the workforce rose from about 37% in 1972 nearly 60% by 1990. That statistic isn't just economic data, it's a developmental context. It meant empty houses. It meant self-managed afternoons. It meant microwaving your own dinner, doing homework alone, and solving social conflicts without adult mediation. Gen X became the original latchkey kids, and that experience didn't just make them independent. It made them emotionally self-contained. There's a difference. Independence is learning to tie your own shoes. Emotional self-containment is learning not to expect anyone to notice when you struggle. Marketing researchers at Reach Advisors once described Gen X as one of the least parented, least nurtured generations in modern American history. While that phrasing may be blunt, the psychological pattern aligns with what developmental research tells us. When children experience high autonomy but low supervision, they tend to develop strong self-reliance, often alongside a subtle undercurrent of emotional isolation. You figured it out because you had to. Your parents weren't calling teachers to negotiate grades. They weren't texting other parents to solve playground drama. If you were upset, you were often told to handle it. That daily autonomy wires the brain in specific ways. It strengthens problem solving. It increases tolerance for uncertainty. It fosters resilience. But it can also create a silent question. If I'm struggling, is anyone really watching? Now fast forward 30 or 40 years. That latchkey kid is now the parent. And something interesting happens psychologically when people parent from memory rather than theory. Many Gen X parents openly admit that their childhood still echoes inside them. They don't necessarily resent their parents, most understand the economic realities of the time, but they are acutely aware of what they didn't receive. And that awareness shapes behavior. They don't want to hover, but they refuse to disappear. This is where the stealth fighter parent stereotype emerges. They're not constantly micromanaging homework or tracking every move. They value independence too much for that. But when something truly matters, bullying, academic injustice, mental health, safety, they show up with startling intensity. It's not random, it's corrective. They remember what it felt like to navigate serious situations alone. So when the stakes rise, they step in, not to control everything, but to ensure their child doesn't feel abandoned in the moment that counts. From a psychological framework, this often resembles what developmental psychologist Diana Baumrind identified as authoritative parenting. Baumrind's research categorized parenting styles along 2 core dimensions: responsiveness, warmth. Emotional availability, demandingness, rules, expectations, boundaries. Authoritative parents score high on both. They are emotionally present, but they also maintain standards. This differs from authoritarian parenting, high control, low warmth, and permissive parenting, high warmth, low boundaries. Decades of developmental research have consistently linked authoritative parenting with positive child outcomes. Stronger emotional regulation, higher self-esteem, better academic performance, improved peer relationships, and lower rates of anxiety and depression. There's no sweeping study declaring Gen X equals authoritative parenting. Generations are too diverse for that kind of oversimplification. But when you listen to Gen X parents describe their intentions, be present but not suffocating. Set limits but stay warm. Allow struggle but prevent damage. It closely maps onto that authoritative balance, and that's not accidental. It's adaptive. Context matters. Gen X didn't just grow up independently. They entered adulthood during economic instability, recessions, corporate downsizing, the erosion of long-term job security, the disappearance of guaranteed pensions. They watched stable systems become unstable. So when they raise children, they do so with an underlying belief: the world will not always protect you. That belief changes parenting goals. Instead of preparing kids for a predictable path, Gen X parents often focus on psychological durability. They prioritize adaptability, critical thinking, emotional toughness, not because they want their children to struggle, but because they assume struggle is inevitable. At the same time, they are raising children in an environment radically different from their own. They are the first-generation parenting in the full glare of social media. They remember anonymity. Their kids live in permanent visibility. For people who grew up when embarrassment faded and mistakes weren't archived forever, this shift is enormous. It explains why many Gen X parents feel conflicted about oversharing milestones online. It's not technophobia. Most Gen X adults are highly tech literate. It's skepticism about psychological cost. They understand both worlds. They experienced boredom without screens. They also adapted to the internet revolution. That dual perspective creates a specific parenting tension. They want their children to benefit from technology, but they also know what presence without it feels like. So when they set screen boundaries, it's rarely abstract fear. It's experiential memory. There's another layer that often goes unnoticed. Gen X parents are frequently described as the sandwich generation. They are supporting aging parents while raising children. They are navigating mid-career plateaus while funding college savings. They are translating between early baby boomers who may see them as too lenient and Gen Z kids who may see them as too strict. Psychologically, that creates constant cognitive switching. One moment you're explaining mental health vocabulary to your parents. The next, you're explaining financial reality to your teenager. That emotional labor accumulates. It's one reason Gen X parents can seem quietly exhausted, not disengaged, not uncaring, just stretched across timelines. And yet, there's something distinctly Gen X about how they evaluate themselves. They don't obsessively chase external parenting validation. They didn't grow up in an era of online performance metrics. Approval was inconsistent at best. That early unpredictability taught them something enduring. External validation is unreliable. So many Gen X parents rely on internal calibration. They parent according to memory, according to feeling, according to what would have mattered to them at 14. That's why they might let a teenager make the same mistake twice. They believe experiential learning builds competence. But if that teenager calls at 2 a.m. in crisis, they will answer. Not with, "I told you so," but with presence. Because they remember what it felt like not to have someone to call. When you watch a Gen X parent at a school event, not hovering, not competing, slightly uncomfortable with hyper-intense parent culture, but absolutely present, you're watching a generation attempt something complex. They are trying to preserve independence without recreating emotional distance. They are trying to build resilience without manufacturing loneliness. They are trying to give their children what they valued: autonomy, grit, self-trust, while adding what they missed: warmth, visibility, emotional safety. It's not a clean formula. It doesn't fit neatly into online parenting debates, but maybe that's fitting. Gen X has never fit neatly into categories. They were the bridge generation, analog childhood, digital adulthood. And now they're building a bridge for their children too, between strength and softness, between freedom and protection, between figure it out and I've got you. If this deep dive resonated with you, subscribe for more psychology explorations like this. And if you want to support long-form research-driven breakdowns, consider becoming a channel member.